when Richard Nixon left the White House in that helicopter, flying out to Andrews Air Force Base, where he would board Air Force One, and it would take him to California, to his home there. And the letter of resignation he submitted was that he would resign the office as of noon on that day. And so for the next 2.5 hours, while he's on Air Force One, Nixon is still the president. And noon would come, he'd probably be somewhere over Arizona. And at that moment at noon, the call sign of the plane would change from Air Force One to Air Force 26003, or whatever the tail number is of the plane, reflecting the fact that it's just a U.S. Air Force plane now flying somebody who's not an official. So Jerry Ford is to be sworn in at noon. Ford, having seen Nixon off, goes back to his office on the second floor of the old executive office building, and all of us on the staff went back to our offices. Now, when Ford would be sworn in, there was going to be a huge presence. Democrats and Republicans from the Congress all across the city. Everyone wanted to be there. They wanted to show support for the president. Democrats wanted to do that because this was an incredible constitutional crisis of a president leaving office and an individual only appointed to the vice presidency would be taking his place. And so they wanted Jerry Ford to know that he had their support. And of course, he had been a member of Congress for 30-some years and was broadly liked by representatives and congressmen and congresswomen. So there was not the invitation to all the White House staff that we could show up and be in the room to see him sworn in. However, we were invited, if we wished, to come down into West Executive Avenue and sort of line the walkway between the old executive office building and the entrance into the west wing of the White House. And we could stand there, and as Vice President Ford walked over at about 11:30, we could be there and cheer for him, wish him well, wish Mrs. Ford well. So, wow, sure, we ought to do that. And my Bill Stearman, with whom I worked, I said, hey, Bill, come on, we should go. And so, I don't know. No, come on, we should go. So he and I are going to go. We walk out of our office, go down the hall, and push the button for the elevator to come. Now, elevators in the old EOB were quite small, really only built to hold 3 or 4 people. They were installed long after the building was built. So the elevator comes, the doors open, Bill and I get on, the doors close, we push the button for the ground floor, goes down 1 floor to 2, stops, the doors open, and there, standing, waiting to come in, is the Vice President of the United States, Gerald Ford, his wife Betty Ford, a Marine carrying the Bible on which he's going to be sworn in, and 2 Secret Service officers protecting him. So we see this and, sort of startled, and we say what I think almost anyone would say is, we'll get off. So Jerry Ford is this ultimate nice guy. He's been letting constituents ride on the congressional elevators with him for 30 years, and his just instinct is, we'll ride down together. So they get in the elevator. Bill Stearman and I are kind of squeezed in each corner. In those days, nobody wore badges or ID cards. Anybody could walk in off the street. The Secret Service agents had no idea who we were. And here we are, right, we could reach out and touch the vice president about to be sworn in. And, if we had had a gun, we could have shot him. They're looking at us warily. Anyway, we're riding down, and I think to myself, this is an incredible moment, historic moment. Well, what to say? I got to think of something to say. And getting down, the doors, we stopped, the doors are about to open, and I said, "Good luck, Mr. President." And that was all I could think of. But I was one of the very first to wish him luck as he was about to be sworn in. Anyway, they walk out the elevator, turn right, go down the hall. They're going to go out into the street. We're going to the same place, so we follow them. And they come out this driveway, big drive, into the street. And here are this phalanx of White House and NSC staffers all lined up and clapping. And so the president, vice president, and Mrs. Ford and their party are walking through the phalanx, and we're following them, and not quite sure where we're going, because we're supposed to just join the people there clapping, but we keep walking behind them, and so kind of a windy day, and the wind is blowing, and my hair was a little thin even then, and I reach up and I'm sort of patting down my hair as the White House photographer takes a shot of this scene. And for 30 years thereafter, the historians at the Gerald Ford Museum in Grand Rapids, Michigan, were trying to figure out who's that guy following Ford as he's going in the White House who's waving to the crowd. And because it looked like I was waving to the crowd. Anyway, Vice President Ford walks in the side door into the West Wing, and Bill Stearman and I just keep following him. Nobody stops us. We get into the police checkpoint. All the police officers are standing at attention, saluting, showing respect to the man who's about to be the president, and we walk in behind him and walk right past the guards. We go in. The Secret Service guys keep looking back at us, and then we go up the stairs. We go past the Oval Office. Actually, as we go, you can see there's these racks of clothes and things being moved out, still belonging to the Nixons. The pictures of Nixon are being taken down off the wall, and we follow them past the cabinet room, past the press room, into the East Wing. And we get to the entrance to the East Room, and the Vice President and Mrs. Ford and his party go into a small kind of holding room for there. And Bill Stearman and I walk into the East Room, enjoyed the throngs there. And exactly at 12 noon, Vice President Ford comes in, puts his hand on the Bible, is given the oath of office by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and then turns and addresses the country and says, "My fellow Americans, our long national nightmare is over." It's an incredible moment to be present at. As a 32-year-old kid from Dubuque, Iowa, who's had this incredible journey to get to that place at that time and at that moment in our country's history.